one thing I want to do, you started karting at VLK when you were 6, correct?
Yeah, Victory Lane Indoor Karting in
Yeah.
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah, Victory Lane karting when you were 6 years old. So it's been 12 years since then. You know, we like to do this with some of our guests where you kind of hear sort of the full story. And I feel like we've heard a good bit of your story over the years, but I want to go all the way back to the VLK days and kind of work your way forward. So talking about how it was to start with Roman and kind of what's led you up to this point now over the course of the last 12 years or so.
Yeah, so just so we're not sitting here for 3 hours, I'll try to keep it a long story short. But yeah, I started at VLK in rental karting. It was just me, my brother, and my dad. We would drive up about an hour to VLK every single morning or every Saturday morning and do the local races there. I started in the youth league, and I grew up racing against my brother, my older brother Roman. He's about 4 years older than me, and he taught me everything I knew. It got to after about a year of like getting decent. It was literally just me and him, P1 and 2. I think there was like 6 races per season. I would win 2 of them, he'd win 4, and like that was it for like 3 years. And then we went race against the adults the very last year when I was 10. I got into the adult class. They take it serious up there. They had the indoor world championships there a couple of years back, which is like a huge event. You wouldn't think rental karting is big, but it's huge. And VLK takes it extremely seriously. So I learned racecraft there, kind of. And then my dad finally, after 4 years in indoor karts, saved up the money to be able to send me and my brother out to GoPro Motorplex. I mean, we knew about it. We wanted to go outdoors, but it just took forever to get out there just to get the money up. And then once we got there, I joined Timmy Tech Racing, and the story just started from there.
Yeah, and so you go outdoors, you kind of spend the first couple of years with Timmy Tech. One of my favorite anecdotes from your story is you actually sat on pole in your very first Swift race at GoPro, correct? Yeah, so your very first Swift race, you're on pole. You ran the first couple of years with Timmy Tech, and then kind of talking about how the relationship, A, with your brother, and B, also with your dad kind of evolved from that point forward.
Yeah, so growing up with them, I mean, my relationship has been extremely strong with my dad and my brother, like especially in the VLK days, and as we got later on to outdoors. So when I joined Timmy Tech, I think I don't know how many years I did with them, but I think I did 2. I did 1 in Swift, and like you said, I sat on pole my first race. I was terrified. That was terrible. Like, don't say where we finished. Don't pull up those results. But yeah, so I always had pace. You know, I developed, like I said, developed racecraft. I knew what apexes were. I knew what all that was. So when I actually got out there, it was just learning the difference in power and then the grip, right? So throughout the years, I progressed into the KH junior class. And then as I got into KH junior the first year, we did 1 or 2 races and we were fast. I was on the top cart, but I was on a really used top cart, very old. My brother was also racing. He was on a top cart as well. He did really good his first year. He started in X30 Junior. A lot of kids started in Micro Swift. So he started out in X30 Junior at 15 years old, I think, or 14, because I started when I was 10. He's 4 years older than me. So he started in X30 Junior at 14, and he did amazing. He was doing great. Then when I moved into KA Junior, he moved into KA Senior because much cheaper. I think 2017 KA came out, or 2016 it did. I think it came out in 2016. 2017, yeah. So he moved into KA Senior because it was a lot less expensive. I moved into KA Junior. I had an amazing time in KA Junior. I developed an incredible amount because I was racing against the likes of Brent Cruz, Thomas Nunziata, so many names, Gray Ledbetter, like Luca Mars, a lot of people that are all in cars right now. And I developed amazing, but in that first year, all of us were new to KA Junior. We all moved up from Swift because we were all excited to race KA because it was the next step before you went from Swift to X30. So it was a great step for all of us. So I learned a lot, and my brother did too. He was racing KA Senior against Weston, some old names, Dusty Davis, Weston Workman, Paulie Massimino, right? He was racing against those guys and doing amazing, but as the year went on, our carts got older, and we didn't get new ones. And then one day, my brother decided, he's like, Dad, we really can't afford this. And my dad was like, yeah, I know. And then we made the decision to go privateer. So we weren't paying for tent space or any of that. And rather than having 2 mechanics work on our 2 go-karts, we had Roman work on both the go-karts, right? And we did that for about half a year to a year. And remember, Roman is now, 16 years old, 15 years old. He's 15-year-old working on 2 go-karts. His younger brothers and mine. And half the time, we showed up 1 to 2, 3, 4, like one race every other race at GoPro because we couldn't afford to do all 12 club races. And think about a 15-year-old nowadays working on 2 go-karts by himself, right? And my dad, he helped out, but he wasn't always at the races. So most of the time, my mom would take us to the races because my dad was on the road. So a lot of rear bumpers fell off that first year of him working for me and working for himself. And then he got tired. He got burnt out. He's 15 years old, right? So he decides, Dad, like, I can't do this anymore. He was putting me before himself, and he wouldn't even make it on track half the sessions. So what ended up happening was he said, Dad, like, and keep in mind, my brother was more talented than me when I grew up, like when we were younger. And he still decided to pull the plug and say, Dad, we don't have enough money. I'm 15. I don't have a real chance of making it professionally. He was very honest with himself and said, we need to, 2 go-karts too expensive, but if we sell both crappy go-karts and buy one good go-kart, then maybe we have a chance with one of us. And I was 4 years younger, you know, I'm 10 years old. Well, I think maybe 11 at the time. And I was progressing good. I had a lot of good company around me. My brother realized that, and he's like, I can coach him. Like, Dad, I can get us there, right? So he decided to just quit. Just flat out said, I'm done. And then we obviously sold both the top carts, bought a Tony Kart. Not saying that Tony Kart's any better than Top Kart, just saying we had old Top Karts. We wanted to see what a Tony Kart was like. We heard it was easier to drive. So we moved to Tony Kart, and that's when the story really got started. He got a lot better at mechanicking. The engines, everything was better because it was just a lot more money around for my dad. And then it was just me and him. When he hit 16, he got his license, and he would just drive me to the track. We do practice days. And yeah, so that's the real start at GoPro for me.
You talk about whenever Roman was 15, and then you look at it now, and he's one of the most sought after mechanics in the karting paddock. And you're one of the most sought after drivers in the karting paddock as well. So, and coaches, I mean, I guess we could say as well. So kind of after Trackhouse, you kind of progressed into what you are now. So I guess what's the story been like since Trackhouse to now for yourself and Roman?
Yeah, so a couple people have heard this story. So this is like a couple of years after my brother was a mechanic, right? So I was, 11 when he started being a mechanic. When I hit 13 years old at the very end of the year, I'm about to turn 14. And we are looking like we're running out of money, right? It's been 3 years in KA Junior for me, I think almost 4. And at this point, like, my dad spent a lot, like KA Junior, like we didn't grow up with go-karting money. We didn't grow up with car racing money, right? So my dad's struggling, right? He's paying all the bills, and he's like, I don't know if we can really afford this anymore. And he goes, I got enough money for about another race or a national race or a whole year. Like, a national race is around, like, if you don't have anything, you don't have a go-kart, you don't have engine, any of that. National race can be like $10,000, $12,000, maybe $13,000, maybe more, right? So my dad decides, we're like, do we want to do a whole club season or one national? It was the first year IAME Grands was coming out. We heard about it. So we're like, Kart Chasers filming stuff. What if we do a national? But the thing was, I was in KA Junior, right? And KA Junior, you win a KA Junior race, everyone's like, oh, that's cool. Like, who's that kid, right? They don't think, oh, let's go sponsor that kid. So as soon as I turned 14, we decided, hey, why don't we just put him in X30 Senior? If this is going to be his last race, send it. You know what I mean? Put him out there against the best in the country, right? Put him out there against Norberg and everyone, right? So that's what we decided to do. We decided to, my dad bought a go-kart, rented engines from the only people that we really knew were good with them with BBS race engines, and used them in KA. They were amazing X30 engines, and I think I did one KA senior race at the very beginning of the year, and the next 2 races were I did an X30. I did 2 X30 senior club races. I'd never even driven an X30 junior, not a single race, right? So KA junior, and then 1 senior race, which I got to the front right in front of Paulie, blocked all of lap 4, 5, 6, got punted way out the way. Learned my lesson there. Don't block on lap 4 in front of Paulie.
In front of Paulie.
Yeah. And then, so then I got the next X30 senior race. I came like 4th, right? Just killed someone in the last corner trying to pass for 3rd. I think it was Brian Boley. Sorry about your chassis. Sorry. And then the next race was the club race the weekend right before IAME Grands. That club race, I met Norberg, got to meet him for the first time. Remember, Ryan had a big channel back then. Kart Chaser wasn't huge. So I knew who he was. I went up to him, talked to him a little bit, and he learned that it was my second ever X30 senior race. And then I qualified 3rd, he qualified 5th, and he was kind of scratching his head on the grid when he saw me. He knows it's my second ever X30 race. And then In the pre-final, I won that, and Paulie came second, Norbert came third, and then in the final, Paulie won. He probably shouldn't have. My engine was amazing. Paulie won, I came second, and Norbert came third, and I defended him on the last couple laps. And then when we got to the scale, he was not happy. Anyways, so I came second, in my second ever X30 senior race, and then the next weekend was IAME Grands, right? IAME Grands was amazing. Put it on pole, got taken out in almost every heat race, chain popped off in 2, and then got taken out in one of them. Started the final in 18th place and then drove 18th to 3rd in the final. And remember, this is my last ever race. I knew this. We knew this. I had to pace all weekend. Just bad luck, right? So, and then in the final, I went 18th to 3rd. Will Power was announcing that race, and Will Power decided to come up to me right after the race. We talked, exchanged numbers, and 2 weeks later, I was shipped off to Indiana for the first time to race X30 Senior at Summer Nats. So that's how I got my start into like the national scene. And then it just really progressed from there. And I took one-off deals here and there. I worked with the Will Power Kart team for 2 races. Indiana, which wasn't a good look at all. They didn't give me a good go-kart. There's really one person to blame for that. But they didn't give me a great go-kart. And then the next race at GoPro, the go-kart was new and we had all the setups, but the Kart Public at the time just wasn't as developed as it is now. And we were really fast one day and then really slow the other day as soon as the weather changed, right? So it wasn't a great weekend, but it's how I got my start and how I learned to get sponsors. And then throughout the years, I just kind of weaseled my way around the paddock asking for sponsors here and there. And whenever I didn't get all the sponsorship for a race, my brother, who, remember, he's been a mechanic for the past couple of years. Now he's being a mechanic at home. So he would buy and sell dirt bikes, motorcycles, cars even. And he would work on them and then sell them really quickly, flip them like that. He was making good money by himself, right? I'm not sure how old we are now. I think we're 15 and 6, or I was 16 and he was, 20? And now he's 20 years old, or actually, we'll say 19 years old, because that's when he really started to help pay whenever we wouldn't find all the sponsorship for a race. And so he would start paying a little bit here and there. We went privateer again for a couple races. He paid everything at those races. My mom maybe paid for travel a couple times. And we would drive to the races. We drove to NOLA, drove to Utah. Whenever I was driving, he was sleeping. Didn't have my license a couple times. But I would drive and he would sleep, and then he would drive, I would sleep. And then, so we really were on our own for a little bit there. And he did amazing. I mean, one time before a race, like, we had to get the money up for it. And when I say we, I mean him. And he drove to like Virginia, drove to Florida, and drove to like, I don't know, somewhere in the middle there. And he got back home. Like, this is in like a 2-week stretch. He made like 10 grand in like 2 weeks trying to get money up. And he was just flipping everything, right? And then I hope IRS isn't listening, but he made that much money, and then he'd pay for me to race, right? And then we would go out and race, and then eventually I got the big break at the IAME Grands. But before then, at the start of the year in 2023, I don't know how much you want me to talk. I feel like I've been talking for a while. But then I joined Kart Republic in 2023 for almost like a permanent deal. After I joined KR, it was a lot more consistent. You know, every race that I would win, they would pay a bit more, so he would just pay less, right? And then I was working with the Kart Chaser boys that whole year in 2023. It was an amazing year. I had a whole bunch of fun. These guys are awesome to work with. And then IAME Grands came around, and we paid for X30. KR paid for KA, and because obviously Joe Troney won everything in 2023. So they were like, we don't need you for X30. Just keep running KA, right? And then Roman paid for X30 and was like, BBS gave us a good engine, and P1, baby, you know? And no one expected it. We wrecked in KA in the final, but in X30, we were flying. So that gave me my big break. I've luckily haven't had to pay for a go-kart race since then, you know? And then my life in general changed. I got people calling in from all over the country trying to help pay for me to get a car seat, for me to do a go-kart race. I got to do a race at Millbridge in a 600cc micro sprint. That was amazing. I got to do a test in F4 in Arizona with the Radford Racing School. And then now I've secured sponsorship and raced 3 late model races this year, and I'm looking to get into Rev Racing. And if I get in there, then I'll be looking to race for their late model program and then move to ARCA. So a lot of big things have happened because of the IAME Grand Nationals. And I try to stress to a lot of people, like, I didn't grow up with money, right? My dad didn't grow up with money. My brother definitely didn't grow up with money, right? So, but my family put everything they had into me. My dad, that what 14 grand he spent that weekend was his 14 grand. There was nothing left after that. He was flat broke after that. It was starting from square one. And I try to tell people, like, if you have a good foundation behind you, like you got a dad that really trusts you. I mean, my dad trusted me too much. Like, he put too much effort into it. Like, a normal dad would not spend his last $14,000 on a go-kart race. You know what I mean? But he just worked for it. So same with my brother. Like, they put everything they had in me. My brother quit his dream to support me. And now we're here. I'm looking to go to NASCAR in a couple of years, right? So it's like IAME Grands made that happen. Like Eric Jones, the people at USPKS that officiate, like, they made that happen, right? Kart chaser, Xander. Xander is like my big brother. You know what I mean? And karting, with Kart Chaser, can change lives if you know what you're doing and you put the money in the right places.